Welcome, everyone, to this afternoon's professional development session on using your SDCCD-EDU Zoom account, this is sort of a meet the new boss, just like the old boss scenario. This is just your Confer Zoom account, the management of which has been moved from CCC Confer, the statewide video conferencing organization for the community colleges, to the local districts because they got tired of having to deal with everybody in the states or all of the community college faculty and staff members Zoom Pro accounts that were provided through Confer Zoom, yay, these many years ago now. So they just dumped the management of all that on the individual districts. So your free Zoom Pro accounts that the state pays for and provides have been reconstituted or reimagined or renamed really as SDCCD-EDU Zoom accounts. This migration took place over the July 4th weekend. It should be complete at this point. And it is the accounts are largely or really identical to what they were before. We with a few minor details, exceptional details. We have also had some reports of some settings being altered in Zoom during the migration. Unintended, not altered by any one of us or anybody at the district, but probably just an artifact of the migration process. I'm going to show you how to find those settings today and how to fix anything that might have changed that you don't want to change. But basically, everything seems to be working fine. But the first thing I'm going to ask here is, are you having any problems with your with your migrated Zoom Pro accounts?
Yeah, I did.
Yes, please.
Okay, so unfortunately, what happened is I never got the question, do you want to save this to your computer or the cloud? And I asked my class because I didn't realize that saving it to the computer is the same as local. And I went through hell and back to find my recording in documents and upload. And it took 7 hours. And oh my God, I never want to go through this again. But I somehow got the recording. And so from now on, I'm going to save it to the cloud for sure. And then I was going to ask, can I find it on my recording now again on zoom.us?
If it is, if you are recording to the cloud, you will find those recordings at zoom.us. That is correct.
I'm happy to hear that.
And if you did not, if you record to the local computer, which I'm doing right now, you will find them in a folder. Let me show you.
I heard the only advantage to that is they never disappear.
Well, there's that. Let's put it this way: if they disappear, it's because you disappeared them, or your computer died, or something like that. No one is going to do it without your knowledge. The local recordings are automatically stored on your hard drive unless you can change the location, the storage location of the local recordings if you wish. But if you don't, which there's no good reason to, you'll find them in your documents folder on either PC or Mac in a folder called Zoom, which is automatically created the first time you enter a Zoom meeting. You've got this folder on your local hard drive. You open that folder, you'll find, oops, I just went to the wrong documents, sorry. Should have noticed that. Okay. You'll find something that looks like this. You probably won't have quite that many meetings in there, but there'll be a series of folders, each one representing a separate Zoom meeting. You can tell which one is which by the date and time. The file name starts with the year, the month, and the date, and then continues with the time of the meeting in 24-hour time. So 14:05 is 2:05 p.m. And this, to find your local recording, you open up this folder and you'll find a file labeled video and like an 11, 12-digit number and an probably an MP4 extension. This is your local recording. It's a standard video file that you can upload to YouTube or Canvas Studio or use locally. You can drop it into a video editor, which is one of the reasons that I record locally. I retain control, for one thing, of my recordings, and I can edit them before I put them online if I need to. So that's still possible with a cloud recording, but you have to go through a bunch of hoops. You have to download the video file from the cloud, then edit it, then upload it to YouTube or Canvas Studio. So, and besides, I'm an old video guy. I just like to retain control of my raw video. So I record it to my local hard drive. But the Zoom cloud is exceptionally reliable as well and has worked for us. There is the issue that we don't have an infinite amount of space in the Zoom cloud to store recordings. So sooner or later, we're going to be nagging you to take older recordings off, to download them and save them locally anyway. So I just avoid that problem by recording everything locally, and I don't have to worry about using storage space in the Zoom cloud that other people might need.
It just takes many more hours to download and get it. That's what I found out.
Oh, it depends on the speed of your internet connection, but if it's already on your local computer, uploading it to YouTube, let's say a 2-hour Zoom recording, uploaded to YouTube takes 10, 15 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it said it was too big. It was 25 MB and it must have taken at least 5 hours.
The problem there is that your YouTube account was probably not verified.
Oh.
The verification is a simple process. YouTube sends you you give YouTube your cell phone number and it sends you a code that you then enter into a box that verifies that you are in fact a human being and not a bot, and that you have access to that cell phone number, and you can then upload videos of just about any length that you want. I've uploaded 7 or 8 hour videos to YouTube before.
Oh, okay.
And there's no size limit. Well, there's no practical size limit. I've never exceeded it anyway. And I do a lot of
how do you find where to verify it?
How do you verify is the next good question. You take a web browser, doesn't matter which one, and web to YouTube.com, youtube.com/verify, / and the word verify, then press enter. And if you're already verified, it tells you. If you're not, in order to create your Google account, which is your YouTube account, YouTube's owned by Google, your Google account is used to access YouTube. And so Google already has a cell phone number. They won't give you an account unless you give them a cell phone number. And they just send the code to your cell phone, you enter it, and you're verified. And then you don't have any limitations on your YouTube account.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Great questions. Anybody else had any trouble with their migrated account since July? I think they actually finished the process on July 3rd.
Dave, I have one
Yes.
question. While you say you store on a local computer, right?
Correct.
But from local computer, if you upload it in Canvas Studio, then you could just delete it, right? Just to save the space in my computer,
You could do that.
right?
You
And
could.
somehow when I put the reaction mark, it just the screen disappears and my reaction goes away. Do you know what causes it?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
When I put the like a reaction button to have my hand raised like this.
Oh, yes.
But then after like 5 seconds or so, my screen goes out and the reaction goes off too. Just like right now, it's gone
That's
again.
odd. Let's see. Let me try it on mine.
Is it just my computer problem?
It might be, I think it might be a setting in Zoom. I remember, I think I have the option somewhere.
No, it's normal to have it go away after a certain period of time. That took about 10 seconds, which is about right.
Yeah, after like 10 seconds or so, it goes away.
Yeah, that's normal.
I think raising your hand stays, but if you're giving a regular
Correct,
emoticon,
correct.
it goes away, right?
The other reactions go away. If you actually raise your hand, that's a separate button and that will stay there. As I just did, I just raised my hand and that will stay there until you lower it or the host does.
Hey, Dave, I have a question. It's Cindy. I'm not teaching this summer, so I haven't even checked my Zoom account that has been
Right.
migrated,
Right.
but is everything migrating with it? Like, because for example, I had a
Yeah,
video.
we're about to talk about what did and what didn't.
Oh, okay, great.
There's not very much that didn't. That's the good.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's go to that. But as questions come up, please let me know. All right, a few facts about the migration. Migration started about 10 p.m. on July 1st. It took a little longer than they anticipated, go figure. But it was finished by the end of the July 4th weekend. So your accounts should be migrated by now. Moving forward, new employees who are hired will automatically get an SDCCD Zoom Pro account. They don't have to ask for it. It'll automatically be provided for them, whether they choose to use it or not. And of course, those of you who had Confer Zoom accounts, those have been migrated to the account group for SDCCD. They're now called SDCCD-EDU Zoom accounts, but it's the same account with the same capabilities. Pretty much the same capabilities. But it's locally managed. So we have local control at the district over how our accounts work now. So if we don't like something, we can request that it be fixed. And we're not trying to go through the state CCC Confer office. We're just going through our own IT, or Brian Weston, the Dean of Online and Distributed Learning, also has administrative access, top-level administrative access to the Zoom, SDCCD Zoom EDU account group. So we have some chance of someone listening to us now if we want something changed. If you are a current employee and you never had a Confer Zoom account, but now you have a need for one, that is a Zoom Pro account that you don't have to pay for, that would normally cost money, will be paid for by the state. You can request that through IT help at sdccd.edu. Just email the IT help desk and tell them that you identify yourself as a an employee at the district and say, I want an SDCCD-EDU Zoom account. I never had one. I never had a Confer Zoom account before. I talked to someone today who was still apparently dealing with a free Zoom account, which of course only allows meetings of 40 minutes in duration. You have to restart the meeting every 40 minutes if you want to keep going. These pro accounts, of course, do not do that. They are, you can have an unlimited number of meetings, and the meetings can be as long as you wish them to be. I've accidentally left a meeting running overnight once or twice when I started it accidentally and forgot to, and then didn't end it. Normally it'll time out after a certain degree of inactivity, but they're not perfect either. So you can get a free Zoom account for the asking. You just have to email ithelp@sdccd.edu. If you had a Confer Zoom account before, your login credentials remain the same. You'll log into it exactly the same way you did before. There was some speculation, and I spread that speculation in May when we first talked about this migration, because we'd been told that we'd be that single sign-on, so-called single sign-on, would be activated, and that we would log into we'd gain access to our Zoom accounts through the SDCCD portal, as we do with most of the other resources at the district, with the same credentials that we use to log into the portal. We logged into the portal, we'd have access to our Zoom accounts. That didn't happen. So, and that it very well may happen in the future. And if it gets ready to happen, we'll let everybody know as quickly as possible and with as much notice as possible. But right now, your login credentials remain the same and will continue to do so. If you had cloud recordings stored on Zoom before, they're still there. And even though the links still contain the Confer Zoom account name, they still work. So if you have recorded Zoom sessions in the past and you put a link to those in Canvas or some other place, shared it with colleagues in some other way, those links still work. So your recordings transferred and the links are still working. You don't have to worry about cloud recordings you made before July 1st. If you use Zoom polls, those transferred. Saved polls transfer. Your personal meeting room links, on the other hand, have changed. Your personal meeting room invite links, like the one that I sent you today to get into this meeting, used to have CCC Confer in the URL, and now it has SDCCD-EDU in the email, in the URL, in the link. So those have changed. If you use your personal meeting room link with your students or your colleagues, as I do all the time, you have to update those wherever you have them provided, in Canvas, on a website. When you send an email, make sure you use the new link instead of the old. That's one of the few things that's really changed. There is or was in Canvas an app in your Canvas course menu labeled Confer Zoom that gave you access to your Zoom account. You could schedule Zoom meetings, you could manage your recordings from there. You could make appointments with students and so on through that. That is no more. That's gone, but it's been replaced by an SDCCD Zoom app, which should be in the course, should show up in the course menu of any of your Canvas shells. Should show up automatically in place of the Confer Zoom app, which has been removed.
Where is it?
It would be in your Canvas course menu. Let's take a look at that.
It's on the left side menu where the other was.
Exactly.
Never noticed it.
Yeah, if you never used it, it's not a big deal, and you don't have to use it now. Yeah, let me just pull up a Canvas course here. We're here. It's in the left side course menu here. Canvas course. And there it is, SDCCD Zoom.
Oh,
Confer Zoom is gone. SDCCD Zoom is there now. Click on that. This is what it looks like.
I was thinking about 3 o'clock. I will see what happens.
Okay, we're getting a little background noise there. I've muted everyone, but you can unmute yourself to ask a question anytime. This looks a lot like the Confer Zoom app. You can schedule meetings here. You can also schedule meetings at the Zoom website. So this is a convenience rather than a necessity. Some people use it, some don't. The only thing that's missing here that was in the Confer Zoom app is the ability to schedule student appointments by request. There is another app for that we have now, and it's called Student Connect. And it looks like this. This is the booking tab from the old Confer Zoom app. If none of this means anything to you, don't worry about it. If you weren't using the Confer Zoom app, you don't have to use these either. But if you have depended on these apps in the past, they're still there. There's just the functionality has been broken into 2 apps instead of 1 for reasons beyond my ken. So we'll just mention that. The Student Connect app, as a matter of fact, will not automatically show up in your course menus in Canvas. You may have to go to your settings link in your course menu and go to the navigation tab and scroll down to the links below the line here and drag it up. I've already got mine up there, but you can just drag links into the active part of your navigation, your course menu in Canvas, and then save the result or it won't keep it. And that will allow you to add the Student Connect app, which I've already added here, so I can show it to you today. But that's what those look like. And they are available, they are functional. So we really haven't lost any capability. It's the names have just been changed to protect the guilty. And there's the Student Connect app I mentioned.
so can students,
Yes.
do students have that on there?
Yeah, the students can
Good.
access that student
That's
appointment
what I was wondering. Okay,
and request appointments. That's what it's there for.
that's great.
Okay. One nice new thing that we have now by virtue of our more, shall we say, collegial management here at the local level is we now have access to Zoom apps, which we did not before. Let me share my Zoom screen with you for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to show you how to do this in a minute too. All right, here's my Zoom screen that I'm seeing. It looks pretty much like what you were seeing a moment ago. But now you can see my Zoom. These are my Zoom menus, not yours down here. And I can pop in and click on them and you can see what I'm doing in my Zoom menus. And in the Zoom host menus down here, just almost all the way, not quite all the way to the right, is now a little icon labeled apps. Zoom apps are Zoom add-ons. some of which are free, that you can make use of if they've been approved at the account level. If they haven't, you can request that they be approved and made available to you. There's a little dialogue process built in for that. So if I click on Zoom Apps, the Zoom Apps icon, a little panel pulls in from the right, and I can see any Zoom apps that I'm currently using. I'll show you one or two of these here in a second. There's also a Discover tab up here, and that allows you to look through and find other Zoom apps that you might like, listed by type, like education apps. As a bingo game that you can play with your students if you like. If you use Kahoot as a student response, like a clicker system, but it doesn't require clickers. It's all done through the web. You can access your Kahoots directly through Zoom rather than having to open up a web browser and go in through that. So there's just all sorts of Zoom apps here that you might want to look at. Some of them are free. Some of them may give you access to services that you already pay for. Yes.
Have you ever opened the bingo? It's not numbers, it's for.
Actually, I haven't. I haven't gotten around to requesting that one yet. Let's say I wanted that bingo app. Let me scroll back down to that. If I click on that, if this were pre-approved at the district, I would see an add button right here, a blue add button, which would add it to my Zoom account. Since it's not been pre-approved, I have to request it.
Oh, I see.
Well, I'm going to do that. I'll request it. Reason for request.
I can't imagine the response for that one.
I can't wait to see. Should be a great icebreaker activity for on board online students, exclamation point. And then I confirm request. And it says pending. That goes to all of the account group administrators. There's 2 or 3 of those in IT, and my boss, the dean of online and distributed learning, also gets it.
Yeah, I'm curious if it has just numbers or if it has vocabulary that you can put in or anything.
I don't know. You're about to find out, hopefully. We'll see. I'll let you know how it turns out. I'll also let him know that I showed it to you all while we're in a live session. So that'll put a little pressure on it.
Well,
but,
it says read more. Do they explain more about it?
Oh yeah, there'll be much more. Read more. There we go. First video bingo. Multiple card play, multiple free bingo games, win coins. Daub your card and shout bingo. Looks like it's just a classic bingo game, as near as I can tell. So it's still a good icebreaker, something to do, get people familiar with Zoom. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Let's see now if I can remember how to get out of that. Left arrow there. Yep. Now I'm back to Discover. If I go to My Apps, one of my favorites is the Virtual Backgrounds app. That is pre-approved. You can get that right now. You know that you can put various things behind you during a Zoom meeting. It helps if you have a green screen behind you, but it's not essential. And of course, you can put all these lovely backgrounds behind you, but the Zoom client only comes with a few. And you can upload your own, but then you have to go find them and vet them and things like that. This gives you just tons of different types of background. I mean, I have no idea how many are in here. I've never been able to get to the bottom of the list. So if you'd like one of these virtual backgrounds, all you have to do, let me change my display mode here so that you can see that I am in fact just sitting in front of a green screen here. Now, if I want to use one of these backgrounds, all I have to do is click and is open up this app and click on the background. He said, oh, click where it says set background. Sorry. Not quite that simple. And bingo, I've got that background. And that puts it in your virtual background list in your Zoom client. Be down here at the, let's see, put it in somewhere there. I've got too many virtual backgrounds. I can't find that one. Oh, there it is. It added that one to my list of available still images for backgrounds, and it automatically activated it. I didn't have to go into the video menus. I don't have to know anything about how to set up virtual backgrounds. It does it for me.
Well, I have to say that for some reason, yeah, your hair isn't moving like mine always moves. Like, that's why I don't like it. It disappears some of my face.
Yeah, exactly. The reason that happens is this setting right here.
Uh-huh.
I have a green screen behind me, and I have that checked.
I
These
see.
virtual backgrounds work a lot better if you're sitting in front of a green screen.
Uh-huh.
You do notice that if you look closely, you can see a little bit of wavering around the edge of my hair here. That's
Yeah.
only because I have fine hair and long hair. And there are too many edges. It's beyond the ability of the keyer here to keep up with all of my hair. If I were bald, the key would be perfect.
Thanks, Dave.
And it's getting closer all the time. Yes. Question.
I dropped you a question in the chat.
Oh, okay, great. And you'll note, Esmond, that I did not say anything about that. Okay, let me see here. Let's see. I'm trying to update my settings. The system prompts me for a verification code allegedly to be sent to my SDCCD email. This is your Zoom settings?
Correct, yes.
Hadn't seen that before. And nothing appears in the email.
It's asking for a 6-letter digit code.
Right. It's unlikely that your account has not been migrated yet, but I'll show you how to tell here in a minute. It is possible that it's not going to let you do that while you're in a meeting. So try it after the meeting. And if it doesn't work, if you still get that prompt, please let me know.
Thank you.
Because you should not.
I might leave right now and try it just to check it out.
Okay, we'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so that's just one fun app. There's lots of things. So the apps are new. We did not have access to very many of those before. And we now have a much more compliant administration who is much more likely to listen to our requests to enable certain apps. So feel free to give it a shot. All right, let me get back to my PowerPoint now. Oops, I didn't take the virtual background off. Can't have two of those running at the same time. There we go, that's better. All right, clean up my key a little bit there. All right. So those are the major facts you need to know, except for one. And that, the one thing you did lose during the account migration was any attendance data that was available, that you had saved, or that you would have had saved in your Confer Zoom accounts before the migration. That was not transferred. And we mentioned that during our sessions that we did prior to the migration. And there was a process you could go through to download that attendance data if you needed to keep it. Hopefully those of you who needed to do that did so, because it is gone now. Nothing we can do about it at this stage. I just mentioned that if you go in and search for attendance in Zoom meetings prior to July 1st, you're not going to find it. This is found on your Zoom. You can get to this attendance data at zoom.us in your account management screens. We need to see those anyway, so I'm going to pull those up. I'm going to log out just to show you how to get in. Okay, your Zoom, all Zoom Pro accounts, the ones that we get from the district, ones that you pay for yourself, free Zoom accounts for that matter, are all managed through the Zoom corporate website at zoom.us. All you have to do, and that's the easiest URL I know to remember. All you have to do is bring up a web browser, go to the location line on the web browser, and type in Zoom.us. That is the URL for Zoom, corporate URL for Zoom. Press enter. You go to the Zoom corporate website. There's a sign-in button up here at the upper right. Not quite the upper right. That's the sign up, it's free button. We hope you'll love it so much you sign up and pay us for it. You don't have to do that. You're getting these pro paid accounts for free because Uncle Gavin is paying for them. So to get into that account and to manage it, you click sign in. Give your email address that's associated with the Zoom account. That will almost certainly be your SDCCD-EDU email address. Mine's different because of some history I have with Zoom and with CCC Confer. And then the password for that account, which you've been supplied with, and you just click sign in. And you go to your Zoom account management screen. We're going to spend a little while here talking about this here in a minute.
So no more CC Confer Zoom?
No more CCC Confer Zoom.
So I can delete that on my...
Yeah, you can get rid of that. Just zoom.us will do it. There is actually another page. It's SDCCD-EDU.zoom.us, I believe. Which gives you a link to your sign-in. This is just a branding page. You don't have to go through this for any reason. You click sign in and you end up in the same place. It's easier to remember zoom.us than it is to remember SDCCD-EDU.zoom.us. And they go to the same place, ultimately. So here we are. Yes, go ahead.
Let me be very clear about this now. What I need to do is just put zoom.us. And
that's all you need to do.
Okay.
That's correct.
And
And
I start over HTTPS like I used to do.
well, you don't usually on the modern web browser, you don't have to type in the HTTPS : // You can if you want to, it'll work fine. But the web browser will add that. It will assume that and add it.
Okay. So just Zoom US and I'm in. Gotcha. Thank you.
Zoom.us and enter and you're in. Or you're at the website, then you have to sign in.
So
You may be signed in already. It will keep you signed in unless you reboot the computer probably. So
Now, Dave, I have a question. I don't know if you're going to get to this. I don't know when, or
I'll
you can
let
ask.
you know.
Perfect. So when so I had a meeting today and it was from another organization.
Okay,
So luckily they gave me, I clicked on and I got in. So it must have been their browser, right?
their link, yeah, their
Yes,
invite.
yes. Okay, so here's my thing. What if someone, because gives me a confer, their link is confer, the old one, CCC, the one that we had before.
Right.
Now, I can't use those login because before I could just use those digits, their
Well, no, the
meeting
digits-
number.
The meeting IDs, the digits, the 11 digits, I think they are, have
Yes.
not changed.
So if it doesn't matter if they're a confer and we're at San Diego State, we can,
Doesn't
our
matter.
community. Oh, okay. I was like,
Those
oh my
meeting
gosh.
IDs are unique.
Oh, okay.
And
Perfect.
if you just hit the join button on the website where it says join a meeting and it asks you for the meeting ID, it'll work.
Just, oh, so it doesn't matter what.
Doesn't matter
Oh.
what account group that's in. The meeting ID is unique to that account. No one else in the world has
Oh.
your meeting ID.
Was anyone else worried about that, or I'm the only one who's just
You're the first person to ask that. That's a really good question. Those
okay? I'm
two
just
still
like,
work as they did before. And
oh,
will continue to do so.
okay.
But,
Perfect.
One question.
Yeah.
But I would assume if it requires a passcode, you have to enter the passcode.
Oh, yeah. If it
Is that true?
requires passcode,
Oh, okay,
I have the
okay.
passcode. Now, that's something you can change, should you wish.
So,
We'll
so
look
Dave, back on that one, that means I can really get rid of that confer account, Zoom.
It's gone. It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, because I had prior to that, I had my own and then I had the district one. So now I could just say
You
goodbye.
still have the district one. It's just not managed through CCC Confer anymore. It's managed through SDCCD-EDU
Gotcha.
now.
There's nothing
Okay,
to really
great.
delete, or you just update the server, right?
Right. I already have the icon on. It says the district because I work well with the icons. It's quick. Thank you so much.
You bet. Yes, Carol.
Oh, just a quick thing. You mentioned that the link has changed, and I did a hyperlink in Canvas and
Yeah.
put my, link in there. So are you saying that that link now in the hyperlink is changed?
Yes. If
Just
it's a link, if it's an invite link to a Zoom meeting or to your
Yeah.
personal meeting room,
Right.
if it's changed, then you need to update it.
Well, I mean, I didn't have to do anything. It worked. I don't know.
I'd have to look and see exactly the nature of that link. If it was a previously scheduled meeting,
It was.
oh, then that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Those were supposed to be carried forward and redirected to the appropriate
Okay,
account.
so great.
So you're the first person to mention that they used that and it still worked. I'm glad to hear that. That's what they promised us. But
Yeah, yeah.
but now if you're talking about your personal meeting room link, that will have changed. And we'll talk about the distinction here in a minute.
Okay.
Good question. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay. Anyway, we were talking about attendance records. Those are maintained under reports in your Zoom account management menus. And they're called usage reports. And you can search any date range up to 30 days in breadth. So if I go back, I can search from, say, June 15th to today and click search, and it'll show me all the Zoom meetings that I've run in that time. If there's more than will fit on one page, I can navigate using these little arrows here. A lot of these Zoom meetings are just tests that I was running, checking things out and so on, but some of them were not. Like here's one that took place on the 22nd of June, lasted 184 minutes. There were 21 people in it. That's an actual Zoom. It's one of these professional development sessions. So each of these lines here represents a meeting. It tells you when the meeting started. The creation time is meaningless. It just goes back to the beginning of 2020. I don't know. That has something to do with the creation of the account or something. But the start time is the actual date and time of the beginning of the meeting, and then you have an end time. Tells you how long the meeting lasted and how many people attended. And if you look closely, that attendance number there is a link. It's in blue and underlined when I mouse over it. So if I click on that, it gives me a roster of who attended that meeting. And it tells me how long they stayed in the meeting, when they joined, and when they left. Don't know if you knew you were being narked on by Zoom. So these attendance data are gone for anything before July 1st, but they're being recorded again. They're always there. They keep it a little over a year, I think, before they roll it off, delete it. And this is useful information if you're trying to tell if your students are attending your Zoom meetings. It's especially useful if you want to know whether they're staying in them. Now, of course, this doesn't mean they didn't just leave their, turn their video off and leave the Zoom meeting on and go and go somewhere else and do something else. But it does at least let you know they went to that much trouble. So these are very useful data, and they will continue to be saved. Henceforth, you don't have to do anything to make that happen. It's done automatically. So it may come in handy at some point. All right.
Dave, the issue with my sign in,
Yes.
I'm sorry, when I tried to go to my settings, it's because I'm on my laptop I don't often use. So it said I was on a different device. However, the notification verification did not appear in my regular inbox. It was sent to my Zoom folder automatically.
That's odd.
So
That's
I
the
had like
first time
8 of
I've
them
seen
there.
that.
Okay.
I'm going to have to try getting into my account on some device I don't normally use and see what happens.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for trying that. I had no exposure, no clue on that. Cool.
Excuse
Yes,
me. Dave?
Elizabeth.
Yeah, do we need to go in through Canvas now to our links that I
No,
put in,
not
or?
you can using the SDCCD Zoom app if you wish, but there's no requirement to use that app.
So I
It's
can
a
go in as usual,
convenience.
as I used to.
Yeah, it's a convenience, not a requirement. It allows you to control your Zoom account through Canvas and allows your students to access your Zoom meetings through Canvas, through the app. So it can save you a little trouble. But it's up to you whether you use it or not, or whether you just manage things from your website or from your Zoom client. So, optional. Okay, let me kill my share here. So you're just seeing my video feed. And we'll move on. Oh, I'm sorry. Gee, I forgot to turn that off. Okay.
Dave, I have a
Yes.
question about the attendance data. Is this
Good.
solely or mostly for instructors' use, or is administration also looking at this data?
Anybody who has their own Zoom Pro account and hosts a meeting from their account will get this data.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, it's nice to know that those data are being collected and stored for a year. Not something that we're informed of on a regular basis. So, okay, now let's talk about your Zoom client. The Zoom client is a little program that runs either on your computer or your mobile device, your smartphone or your tablet, that connects you to Zoom and allows you to attend or host a Zoom meeting. You've all been using this client on your computers, probably without, or perhaps without even knowing it was there. When you join a Zoom meeting for the first time, this client is downloaded from Zoom, from the web, automatically, and installed automatically and silently on your computer. You don't notice anything happening. And then it runs itself. It does ask you at some point to open Zoom meetings in order to get in, and that's what actually runs the client. So you do have to okay it running, but you can't connect to your Zoom meeting if you don't run it. So it's not really like it's something you have a choice on, unless you just want to hide and not attend that Zoom meeting. So your Zoom client sits on your computer and runs when you need it. If you use a smartphone or a tablet to attach to attend or host a Zoom meeting, you have to load an app on your phone or on your tablet, and you then have to, if you're hosting a meeting, you have to sign in with your credentials on that app. And that app you know about. You have to load it manually onto your phone. And nothing happens automatically there. But on the computer, it's quite silent. It really doesn't matter in most cases whether you know it's there or not, until you spend a little time and Zoom updates the app, which they do on a regular basis, every few weeks at least, sometimes multiple times in a month. And they do this when they're adding new features to your Zoom account. Those features usually operate through the Zoom client, or many of them do anyway. And in order to gain access to these new wonderful features, like those virtual backgrounds I saw you were a new feature at some point in time, some years ago. Maybe you want to use
I don't hear you.
I don't see him
you don't hear
either.
me because I'm not saying anything. I think probably I've got two things fighting here. Let me try this. There I am.
Oh, you're cute.
You want to use Avatar?
I saw him one time.
This is a free avatar. There's about 24 of them or so that you can choose from. And, as you move around, the avatar moves with you. It more or less syncs with your lips, with your voice and things like that. And if I raise my eyebrows, it raises its eyebrows and so on. It's a lot of fun. This is a new feature. If you haven't updated your Zoom client recently, you won't have access to this.
So you click app and it'll say avatar?
No, it is. Let me get out of this now. Back to there we go. If you go to, that's not what I wanted to do.
I think you can change it. You have to change it in your original settings, right? Select it.
You do have to go in and select it. Let me share my Zoom screen here with you again. And you go to the little camera icon in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom menus. You got an up caret there for your video menus, and there's a choose virtual background option in that menu. This is how you set up virtual backgrounds manually without the app that I showed you. But there, across the top of the background list here is a little menu for virtual backgrounds, filters, and avatars, which are still in beta. You only have this if your Zoom client has been updated. And there they are. And you just pick the one you want. And you will appear as anything from a cat to a cow.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I see a cow there. That's funny. There was a new feature a number of months ago. I was told by other teachers that allowed you, when you're in the breakout room, when the students are in the breakout room, to share your screen
Correct.
to the breakout room. And there's a certain thing that it said, I cannot get it. I don't know how to get it.
I'm about to show you how to update your client.
Oh, good.
That's all you have to do.
Okay, great.
Okay. So let me stop my share there. Normally your client is silent, runs in the background. You don't see it, but you can bring it up to look at it, to look at the window that it runs in. In Windows, I guess I shouldn't have killed my screen share there. Just a second. In Windows, you just go to the Type Here box in the lower left-hand corner of your taskbar. On a Mac, you'd go to your Applications folder in the Finder, and you'll find a Zoom app there. In this case, I can just search for Zoom, and the Zoom app pops up, and I run it, and my client pops up. And that's what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and kill that share now so I don't forget I have that running. And I'm going to pull the client over there. Where'd it go? Ooh. There it is. This is what the client window looks like if you have it actually running in the foreground on your computer.
You have to share again.
I don't think so. If you're not, I should have mentioned earlier, you want to be, for this presentation, you want to be in speaker view in Zoom rather than gallery view, so you can see this clearly. The view button is in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen.
Got it.
Click that, go to speaker view. You should be able to see my client with me down in the lower right-hand corner. And this only works. More about how I'm doing this later. This is not a basic Zoom capability, but this is your Zoom client. So you're just necessary at this point that you see that Zoom client window. These four icons here will vary depending on whether you're in a meeting or not. Right now I am in a meeting, so it looks like this. They'll look differently if I'm not in a meeting, but everything else will be the same. In the far upper right-hand corner of this client window, just below the X where you close it in Windows, will be a little icon. If you've uploaded a profile image into your Zoom account, you'll see yourself here. If not, you'll just see your initials here, I think. But if you click on that icon, in either case, you get a menu. And near the bottom of that menu is an option to check for updates. Do that. We'll do just that. Check for updates.
Can I?
Okay, I had to mute everyone again there, but again, you can unmute yourself at any time. I'm up to date. It warned me earlier today that I needed to update. If it had not been, if I were not up to date, if the client were not up to date, it would give me an option to update. That's best done when you're not in a meeting. You can cut yourself off from the meeting that way. Indeed, it won't run the update if you're in a meeting. So do this check when you're not in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting. and it will allow you to update the client. You can do that at any time. And it's a good idea to check it every now and then to make sure that you're not missing something, because new features may well not work for you if you don't have an up-to-date client. It is possible to tell Zoom to keep your client up to date for you, or at least to warn you when you need to update your client. You can set that under the client settings icon here, the little geared wheel just below the link, the icon where I clicked a minute ago. If I click that geared wheel, I get a settings page for the client. Some of these settings are the same ones you can get on the website, which we're about to look at. Others are unique to the client and have to be changed here or managed here. And it's hard to know which is which sometimes. But on the general tab, the opening tab of these, and there are many of these settings for video, audio, screen sharing, chat, and Zoom apps, so on. All this is different stuff. But under the main or general tab, there's an option near the bottom of the screen that says Zoom updates. And there's you can check a box that says automatically keep my Zoom desktop client up to date. That's a really good idea. And you can tell it whether to do it fast or slow. Slow, or rather if you choose fast, I should say, you'll get requests every time a new update comes out. You'll get a notice asking you to update your Zoom client. It'll show up in the client itself. And if you don't respond for a certain period of time, Zoom will update it automatically for you. Slow just happens. They wait a little while before advising you to update your app or your client app, just in case. They have been known to put out updates to the Zoom client that added some new features and broke others. So if you're the type who likes to wait until other people have tried it out for a little bit, you can set this to slow. I don't have any trouble leaving it on fast. I've never had Zoom's pretty careful about these client updates, so I haven't really had any problems. So setting that will make it much more likely that your Zoom client is up to date. And I recommend that because you might be missing out on some cool features if you don't update the client. All right. Oh, and your clients on your smartphone or your tablet should also be updated on a regular basis. Those you do those you update just as you would any other app on your device. It's going to vary, but depending on whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone or an iPad or whatever. But there's a process for updating your apps periodically, and that's something you want to do with the Zoom app. You want to keep it up to date. And there's no automated process. You just have to update your apps on your smartphone or your tablet with some regularity if you want to make sure they keep working. All right. Now we've reached the point of what I plan to do for the rest of the session today, which is just a kind of a general Zoom overview / refresher for folks who have been using Zoom for a while. You've had some great questions so far, which I appreciate, but what I'm going to talk, let me tell you what I'm going to talk about from here on out. And if you don't hear what you're concerned about, please go ahead and ask the question. We're going to talk about how to start a Zoom meeting, schedule it and or start it. We're going to talk about how to invite people to it or get people into the right Zoom meeting along with you. We're going to talk about running the meeting and a little bit about managing your accounts. So if you have a question that you're not sure fits into one of those categories, please feel free to ask it at any time. I'm just going to check and make sure I know where I am here while you're thinking about that. Okay.
So Dave,
Yes.
I actually emailed you, but you probably have so many emails, you don't have time to read them.
I'm sorry if I missed one.
Yeah, I mean, the problem's solved now, but it took a half hour by a real expert tech person.
Uh-huh.
So if anyone has this problem, I hope not ever. I put the link in for the students, you know, the first day, and unfortunately, two things happened. One, I put down no waiting room, and for some reason they had everybody stuck in a waiting room. And second thing happened was that the link didn't work because she found out that Zoom had added some zeros and I don't know what else before the link. Have you ever heard of that? And just
That I
automatically.
have not heard, no.
Yeah, horrible, horrible. So I don't know.
You're the
just-
second person today to tell me that their Zoom settings had been changed.
Yeah, without me
that.
doing anything. Yeah,
And certainly not without any of us doing anything either in the online.
I had never had a waiting room, so I didn't even know how to get them unstuck.
Yeah,
took me a
we're going
half
to
hour.
cover that. We're going to cover that here in a minute.
Good.
Thanks-
So anyway,
Thanks for
one of my
mentioning
students,
that, because as I say, you're the second person today to tell me that.
well, one of my students was so
uh,
nice that through Pronto, she kept talking to everybody in the class to say, hold on, Carol's trying to work it out, don't go away. And so I ended up with 20 people, even though originally the link didn't work. So, I mean, I lucked out, but
Boy, no, having the meeting ID accidentally changed is really bad.
really bad.
That account migration process is just a program that takes the account data from one group to another. And apparently it's not entirely stable.
No, but this was before the migration. This was the
Oh,
first day of class.
That
No,
was just a problem.
nothing to do with the migration, just a wonderful glitch. Yeah.
So that was Zoom. That's curious. Well, at least they owned up to it and found the problem and fixed it for you.
Well, Zoom didn't, but my mentor person did.
Oh, she found the
Took a half hour. She said she's never
looked at
seen
it
it.
and found it. Oh my God.
I know.
Okay. Interesting. But I have heard there being some relatively minor changes in the account settings as they were migrated, as the account was migrated from the Confer Zoom account group to the SDCCD account group. Though I wouldn't necessarily, while there were a small number of problems, some of them were serious, and they prevented people from getting into attendees from getting into your meetings and things like that, which is serious. So I will talk about how to look for that sort of thing here in a minute and how to fix it.
Carol, how long ago did that happen?
The first day of class, June 21st and June 23rd.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you.
Nuts. Okay. So if you are going to use your new Zoom account, or your newly migrated Zoom account, I should say, how do you start a meeting? In fact, there are several ways to schedule and or start a meeting. First off, you don't have to schedule meetings in advance if you don't care to. Zoom will allow you to start a meeting at any time. They call that an instant meeting for what it's worth, but it works just fine. So you don't have to schedule meetings in advance. Obviously, you need to tell your people who are going to attend the meeting when the meeting is going to be taking place so they can join you. But you don't have to do that by using the scheduler in Zoom. You can just tell them, we're going to meet on Zoom at 2 o'clock next Wednesday, and give them the access information that they need. And that's the next slide. But you don't have to schedule a meeting in advance, but you may for your own, as a reminder to you, nothing else. So There are several ways to schedule a meeting, and there are several ways to start an instant meeting. So we're going to see what those are. First, you can do this all from the Zoom website. You can go to meetings, the meetings tab over here on the left. That's usually where you get dropped when you log in to your Zoom account on the website at zoom.us. And you have a meeting here, a button here, prominently featured that says schedule a meeting. If you click on that, you get a meeting scheduling form. You give the meeting a name. The default is my meeting. You don't put anything in there. That's what it'll be. You set the start time, the start date and time, usual way. You set the estimated duration of the meeting. This is merely for Zoom's planning purposes and yours. This is not enforced. If I say that this meeting is going to start at 4 p.m., it doesn't just automatically it's going to tell Zoom it's going to be an hour long. Zoom does not cut the meeting off at 5 o'clock. The meeting continues. This is merely informational, this duration setting. So it doesn't really matter that much what you put here. Obviously, if you want these times to mean anything, you have to tell Zoom what time zone you're in. That should already be set. Yes?
But I was going to ask about the time zone, because sometimes I have a meeting with people out of the country.
No, but it's where you are.
Where I am, okay. So they're in California, gotcha.
Yeah, it's where the host is.
Thank you.
Right. You can set the meeting up as a recurring meeting if you want to meet every Tuesday or Wednesday at a certain time or whatever. You can set that up. You don't have to schedule each one of them. You can require advanced registration. And you can post, if you set the registration requirement on, when you create the meeting, you'll get the information you need to send to your attendees so they can register for the meeting. I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying that is a possibility if it's appropriate. Then you get to choose the meeting ID that you use. And this is very important because this was what determines how the people attend or get into your meeting, how you invite people to the meeting, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. But the options are to either generate the default option is to generate the meeting ID automatically so that each meeting has a unique meeting ID. This makes it less likely that somebody's going to stumble into your meeting, but it also makes it more likely that people who are supposed to be in the meeting are not going to get there. You can also use your so-called personal meeting ID, which does not change ever. And which is what I always do, because I'd rather deal with the consequences of someone entering the meeting who was not supposed to be here. Well, shoot, with my meetings, I don't care who attends, as long as they behave themselves. And I have ways of dealing with that if they don't. So it's only ever been necessary for me once. In all the thousands of Zoom meetings I've held over the years, I have had somebody enter a meeting and try to disrupt it once. They call that Zoom bombing. And I've been Zoom bombed once. I had a visit from Professor Hanky Panky, whom I kicked out of the meeting and reported to Zoom, and so on. Probably damned his immortal soul to the nether regions. But it's just not a big deal in my experience.
Excuse me, dear.
Yes.
When I go to zoom.us, that's how I'm getting into Zoom. How do I get, I don't see my client. How do I get to my client?
No, the client is a separate program, a separate entity.
How do I get there?
to get to your client, run Zoom. Are you on a PC or a Mac?
Mac, I'm on a Mac.
Mac, go to your application folder in the
Okay.
Finder,
Yeah.
and you find the Zoom client in there. Has
Okay.
the little camera, white camera on a blue icon, and you can run it from there.
Basically the desktop image, right?
Right. You may indeed have a link to it on your desktop, but if you don't, you can run it through the application folder.
I got it. Thank you.
I'm going with the worst case scenario there.
Thank you.
You bet. That'll work no matter what. Okay. You also get to choose what, if any, security measures you enable. You can enable a passcode by checking that, and a passcode will be generated automatically for you. You can change it if you like, and you can make it anything you want. It doesn't have to be numbers. I think it's 10 digits or something is the limit. Or you can just leave that off. You can set a waiting room so that you have to give permission for people to actually join your meeting, which is a major hassle, which I don't use. Or you can require registration and authentication, which I definitely don't recommend with students because they'll never get through the process. So you can select any of these security options or none of them. We have the option to use none of them. And I never use any of them, and I never have any trouble, but you may have different experiences. You may get different mileage. And once you have set all of this, you just save the meeting and it becomes an entry on your upcoming meetings list. So that's how you schedule a Zoom meeting through the Zoom website. If you are
Dave, I'm assuming you can go back and edit that if you put in more restrictions.
Good question. You can go to upcoming meetings at any time. You can click on the name of the meeting and you can go to the bottom and edit the whole thing. There's an edit button at the bottom and then just save the changes. So edit right there. You can also delete it if you don't want to. Or if you're setting up something that you want to use over and over again, you can set it up as a template so you don't have to answer all those questions every time. So you can do this through the Zoom website. You can also do it through Canvas, through the SDCCD Zoom app. In your course menu. That has a schedule a new meeting button. This does exactly the same thing as doing it from the website. You get a form that looks very similar and you just fill it in and save it. So that's another way to schedule a meeting if you use Canvas. You prefer to schedule your meetings in the SDCCD Zoom app.
Dave,
Yes.
do you think it's important to change the meeting ID every semester?
Well, you can't change your personal meeting ID.
Okay.
You can change the meeting ID for your account. You
Okay.
can have Zoom when you schedule a meeting automatically select a random meeting ID. And indeed, if you use the SDCCD Zoom app in Canvas, it does that automatically. You can't use your personal meeting room if you schedule your meetings through the Zoom app in Canvas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which is a pain. Which is just one reason why I don't use this. But
So it's okay to just keep the same ID every semester?
Zoom meeting ID for years. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, that's a relief. Thank you.
There's a slight increase in risk of having someone break into your meeting in that case, but like I say, I do thousands of these things.
Well, I have a waiting room, so
And if you have a waiting room, you can, if somebody shows, if Professor Hanky Panky shows up in your waiting room, you
Not
can
gonna happen on my watch.
not let him in. That's
Thank
probably a
you.
pretty good bet. Yeah, pretty good decision. All right.
Dave,
So
in the waiting room, do the participants get to talk to each other?
no,
Okay,
they're just in limbo until you let them in.
I like.
As far as I know, I honestly don't use the waiting room, so I'm not that familiar with it. I do know how to turn it off.
No, they can't talk to each other.
I didn't think so, no.
No.
I have a question. This is
Yes.
Kat.
Good.
So I've never used the personal meeting room that you just showed. I always do generate something different from each meeting. If I wanted to use the personal meeting room, do I send the students the Zoom link that showed up, or what do I send them? Because I send them an email, you know, like
I'm
with the
about
Zoom
to
link.
show you that.
Oh, great. Perfect.
All righty. So that's how we can schedule a meeting. If you want, you do have what's called a personal meeting room. If you go to the meetings tab and click where it says meetings here, you'll see across the top this these tabs: upcoming, previous, personal room, and meeting templates. If you click on your personal room, you get the information about your personal meeting room. This is a meeting room with an ID, with a join link, with a meeting ID that never changes, unless you change your Zoom account, unless you get another Zoom account. This will remain unchanged. It is, for all the reasons we just talked about, it is a very slightly increased risk of someone showing up in your meeting who shouldn't be there. For instance, if you were scheduling individualized appointments with students and you wanted to talk with them one-on-one in Zoom, you might not want to use your personal room, because all of your students would have the link to that personal room, and they might drop in not meaning to, just by accident. You know, click on a link or something, or just be curious and drop in sometime. It happens to me periodically. It's never a problem. You just handle it in the same way you would if somebody knocked on your door when you were having a meeting with a student in your office, if you're lucky enough to have one. But it's maybe a little less appropriate for one-on-one meetings. But for class meetings and so on, like I say, I've never had any trouble using it.
Dave?
I do all of my meetings in my personal meeting room. Yes.
Dave, it's Kathy. And I had a question when you, or maybe you're going to cover it, but so our personal meeting room isn't going to change, hasn't changed at all.
The link to it has.
Okay, but we don't really have to worry about it. Now, I let students come in before I want to, but is there a place there that like could limit? So I don't want students just coming in like hours before I'm there or using my Zoom link. Is there a way to make it like 10 minutes before?
Yes.
And how come I can't use hands with my avatar? It follows my head.
Oh, yeah, right. If you raise your hands, it does. Your avatar got no arms, unfortunately. Poor thing. They're not quite that good. Maybe they'll get better.
Okay, so no arms.
So the personal room is a meeting room whose access information never changes. And to me, that's great, because the number one point of failure in Zoom, and there aren't very many, and they're not very common, but the number one point of failure in Zoom is having you show up in one meeting room with one meeting ID, and your students show up in another meeting room with a different ID. And you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and your students are sitting there going, where is she? And, you know, it's not going to work out well. If you use your personal if one uses one's personal meeting room all the time, that's not going to happen, because the access information never changes. The access information for your personal meeting room includes your meeting ID, a 10-digit number that students can allow students to access a meeting just by clicking on the join a meeting button here at the website or in Canvas or on the app on their smartphone. And then they just enter that meeting ID right here. If there's a passcode set, they'll have to know that and enter it. Have a very high security passcode on. I have a passcode. Normally, I don't use passcodes. But when my account was migrated to the new account group, the account group had a setting that said you had to use at least a passcode for security. So I set the simplest passcode I could think of and then sent the link out. And I have set a setting that embeds the passcode in the link. So people don't have to remember the passcode. They just have to have this link. I can send that to them and they don't have to worry about entering a passcode to enter my meetings. It's
I had
embedded
to.
in the join link.
Dave, I had to enter a passcode each time I logged in today.
If you came in using the meeting ID, yes. If you clicked on this link, you should not have had to.
Okay.
Okay. So, but if you use the meeting ID, yes, it will ask you for the passcode. The only reason I don't take that passcode off is that this link has been published so widely that I'm afraid if I changed it once already and there was a little bit of chaos. I'm going to wait maybe until the end of the summer and take that passcode off, because that will change the invite link. And indeed, the invite link is the other way to get people into your meeting in the simplest way. This invite link, which includes the passcode, encoded and included in it. That's the passcode there in encrypted space. So if I want people to be able to get into my meeting, all I have to do is send them that link, which is how you all got in today. You got the link, most of you probably got the link off an email. You just clicked on the link in the email and bang, you came right into my personal meeting room and we're all together. And nobody is lost wandering in Zoom space in a meeting room with no one else there, hopefully. This is the simplest way to ensure that you and your students end up in the same, or you and your colleagues end up in the same meeting room and can see one another and talk to one another. That's why I always use my personal meeting room. You saw that when when you schedule a meeting, if you have your personal meeting room enabled, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute in settings. If you have your personal meeting room enabled, you get a choice when you schedule a meeting, whether to have a randomly assigned meeting room, randomly assigned meeting ID, which you then have to communicate to your students by some means. Or you can use your personal meeting ID, that link, that meeting ID and that link, join link, never changes. So you can just put that in Canvas or in an email or on a website or whatever, and people can click on it and come in. I don't recommend putting your personal meeting room invite link on Twitter or Facebook or any public social media. That's when you may make some new friends. And all those friends may be people you really want to deal with. So don't put your personal meeting room in a public place where anybody can see it. But putting it on Canvas or putting it on in an email that you send to targeted individuals is perfectly fine. At least it works fine for me.
Dave?
Yes.
Quick. Two things. One, I had checked no, what was it that you said? No password I had checked.
Right.
So did they just, because I had a hyperlink, is there a password included in there or something?
Well, no, if you didn't set a passcode, there shouldn't be a passcode, period. It shouldn't be.
Another thing is, were you going to mention about how to get people out of the waiting room?
Well, yeah, I certainly can. If there are people in the waiting room, when you start, when you, as they come into the waiting room, you'll see messages popping up on the screen saying so-and-so is in the waiting room. And you can,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah,
a button that allows you to let them in.
yeah, well, that was what I hadn't set it for a waiting room. Now there's no waiting room, thank God. But if it ever happened again, I had no idea. It didn't pop up. It didn't say anyone was waiting. And I had to have somebody come on and help me. And there was finally some kind of a thing that said admit at the top of the participant list.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Indeed, you can go to the participants tool. Let me share that screen, and that you can access the waiting room from there.
But it didn't ever tell me that there were people.
No, well,
waiting
that,
in the waiting so bad.
that it should have done.
I know.
Normally it does.
Yeah.
So it's something happened during the migration there. And you're not the first person to tell me something got turned on that wasn't turned on before.
This is before the migration.
So I'm going to run through some of the major settings with you here in a minute that you may want to check to make sure that things aren't happening that you're not aware of. And it's happened to me. I've had passcodes suddenly appear on my personal meeting room that I didn't set.
Oh gosh.
And you know, I start getting emails and phone calls and things like that. And it's I've lost over the years lost one or two professional development sessions that way, where it took long enough to get things sorted out that everybody had gone on to something else by the time we got it fixed.
So let me ask a question.
I empathize. Yes.
So if that occurs, because I had that to happen, and I had to give everybody the passcode, but look at the settings when you was talking about setting up. I did not know I could just zero it out.
Yeah, you can uncheck it.
I didn't. I know now I can uncheck it.
And I'm going to show you where you can uncheck it permanently, so it doesn't keep coming back, or at least until the next time they migrate or update. Zoom sometimes does some maintenance, and every now and then there's apparently some unintended consequences of some of that maintenance. So I do go in periodically and check the critical settings on my account, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. Let me get to the point of how to get people into your meeting, and then we'll talk about that next.
Dave, I have a question. I don't mean to hold things up here, but if I have the link, it says here's the invite link, and I have a password. How did you combine? Do I have to give them both of those, or can I combine the password into the link?
Combine the passcode into the invite link, which has happened in mine here.
Yeah. And how did you do that?
There's a setting.
Oh, okay.
That I'm going to show you in a minute in Zoom.
Perfect.
That tells it to do that rather than forcing people to enter the passcode manually. Great question. Okay, now, if you're going to use your personal meeting room and you haven't scheduled the meeting through Zoom, maybe you just told people you were going to meet on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, you can start a meeting in your personal meeting room, a Zoom meeting, from right here in the meetings tab on the website under personal room. There will be, see where it says join now here? If I weren't in a meeting, that would say start a meeting. And I can start a meeting from right here, an so-called instant meeting. So if I don't care to go through all the rigmarole of scheduling the meetings through Zoom, through that Zoom form, or through the SDCCD Zoom app in Canvas, I can just publish a schedule somewhere, like send out an email saying our professional development session will take place on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And then a few minutes before that, I go in and I click start meeting, and the meeting starts, and I'll be there when people come in. And that's how I operate. Actually, I usually start my meeting through my Zoom client, which amounts to the same thing. I can start it from the Zoom client as well. When you're not in a meeting, your Zoom client has a little icon right here that says new meeting. You just click on that, you start a Zoom meeting immediately. And if you have your Zoom settings set accordingly, it will automatically start in your personal meeting room. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a moment.
Can I ask another question?
Surely.
So during the normal semester, I have my classes already pre-set up.
Right.
Sometimes I'll get like a 15-minute warning that it's coming, and other times it won't start until 5 minutes after the class on my desktop client. Why is that?
Well, you mean it starts automatically on the desktop client, but late.
Right.
Probably just due to traffic on the Zoom servers.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Zoom is used extensively.
Yes, exactly. I just wasn't sure if I had somehow set a setting on one of them to give me an advance notice.
I am going to show you how to get email notifications that
All right.
meetings are coming up and things like
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. That's interesting. So, that's how we could, several different ways you can start, schedule, and or just start instant Zoom meetings. The next critical thing, of course, once you start the meeting, how do you get your attendees into the right meeting room? Well, by far the best way to do that is your invite link, which you saw in the Zoom. You have an invite link for your personal meeting room that never changes. There's some basically never changes. If you scheduled a meeting, you will have an invite link for that particular meeting. These are unique links. They point only to a particular meeting room, either your personal meeting room or one that you have set up just for that meeting. This is the safest way to have people join your meeting. Just make that link available to them, either the scheduled link or the one in your personal meeting room, which is my preference. Put that in Canvas, put it in an email, put it on a website, whatever, and make it available to the people who are supposed to come to the meeting. That assures that you and they will be in the same meeting room, which, as I said, is the one way that Zoom sometimes fails. It's the only common point of failure for Zoom.
Is copy and paste better than just saying copy invitation at the bottom?
Yes. If you copy the invitation, you get this. And the meeting link is in there, but there's a lot of other stuff too. So I find I have much less trouble, and you can email this to people, or you could put it on a website, or you can embed it in Canvas. But they get a lot of information they generally don't need. So rather than having them have to pick the invite link out of this, I just send them the invite link and say, click on this link to join my meeting. And that's about all they need to know. You can provide them with your meeting ID if you wish, which will be unique to either your personal room or a scheduled meeting. And you can provide them with a passcode if you have one set separately. But it's just simpler just to provide them with a link. It vastly simplifies the process for them to join your meeting, even if they're unsophisticated Zoom users. Maybe they've never attended a Zoom meeting before. There must be someone who's still alive out there who hasn't attended a Zoom meeting sometime in the last 3 years. But
Yesterday.
you know, that was more important early on. Almost everyone's a Zoom pro by now, but even if they're not familiar with Zoom, they should be able to get into your Zoom meeting. That's been Zoom's greatest strong point. It's why Zoom has basically dominated the video conferencing market, particularly since March of 2020, because getting into a Zoom meeting was so simple and so much simpler than any of the tools that were available in March of 2020, other than Zoom were. And that's what has given Zoom its tremendous competitive advantage. Other people are catching up with that as well, but Zoom still is by far the most commonly used video conferencing app because it works. It continues to work well, and they continue to add to it. It's very reliable, not 100%, but quite reliable. So getting people into your meetings is very simple with that invite link, and that is definitely the way to go about it. This will work even if they're joining from a smartphone. If I send that link to somebody on a smartphone or an iPad, say, and they open up the email on the smartphone and they tap on that link, the first thing a smartphone will do is say, okay, can I open that in Zoom? They say yes. It opens up the Zoom app and drops them into the meeting. If they don't have the Zoom app, it tells them how to load it. So it's pretty.
So when I've had students, when I've put
foolproof, but it's fool resistant.
Dave?
Yes.
So when I've put my link in my Canvas account and a student says that when they click the link, they're not able to get to it, so they're probably not reading something saying to upload it.
That should happen automatically. Yeah, it's possible if they're trying to join from a smartphone and they haven't loaded the Zoom link, they may not know how to do that.
So I should ask them if they're using a smartphone or.
If they have a problem, that's the first thing I'd ask. Are you getting into this on a computer, or are you entering it from a smartphone or a tablet?
Or Google Chrome?
You have the Zoom app loaded onto your smartphone, your mobile device.
Thank you.
But like I said, it is fool resistant. Nothing is foolproof. The Titanic proved that, if nothing else.
Dave, I have a question. In the past, I was told my students who entered via their cell phone needed to put in a passcode, but that is no longer true.
Well, you can force them to have to, but you don't have to do that. And that's under your control.
Okay.
There's a setting for that.
Okay. Thank you.
And indeed, that's where we're going now. Yes.
What she is talking about, what I asked about earlier, about you have to go to your settings and take passcode out of it.
Right. There's also a separate Zoom setting that says you can make people who come in on a mobile device have to enter a passcode even if no one else does. And that's possible that setting has gotten turned on, because it's clearly true that during this account migration, or sometimes just during a normal client update, sometimes settings get changed in your Zoom account and you didn't do it. And I know that happens because it's happened to me. And sometimes you need to go in and check those settings. And I'm about to show you how to do that and how to make decisions about them. And that'll take up the rest of our time today. So, important Zoom settings. How do you access the settings that control the behavior of your Zoom account? Well, it'd be nice if there were just one answer to that question. But most of them you access through the Zoom website, which we've been in several times today. So I can just click there and go to the Zoom website, and I'm in my account already. I've already logged in. And to see my account settings, I go to the left over here where I found the reports and things like that, and I select settings. and I get this roll of toilet paper of dozens and dozens of settings. And don't worry, thank God I've only got 10 minutes left. I can't show you each and every one of these. Well, I wasn't planning to anyway. You'd all left anyway, if you had any sense. But there are a few settings I want to mention to you that you might want to check. First off, at the top of the list, and it's just a long scroll here, roll of toilet paper, the meeting settings are the things you're normally concerned about for the most part. My key's breaking down here. Let me fix that. There I go. Okay. This might be set. Require that all meetings are secured with one security option. That means you have to have on all meetings either a waiting room or a passcode, or require authentication, registration and authentication. That should be turned off, but if it's turned on, you can turn it off just by clicking right here. Indeed, to change any of these settings, you just click on this little slider here, and gray is off and blue is on. And if it's in the position you don't want, you just click on it and it'll go to the other position. And normally those setting changes happen, or they're saved automatically and immediately. If you want to use the waiting room, which can be a pain, but does add some layer of security or insulation against people coming into your meeting room and trying to be your meeting and trying to be disruptive, you can turn that on. You can require a passcode when scheduling new meetings. You can require a passcode just for instant meetings. You can require a passcode for your personal meeting room, PMI, personal meeting ID, personal meeting room, same thing. Or you can require a passcode only for participants joining by phone. What I do is keep all of those turned off. But you do want to check them from time to time and make sure those security settings are set the way you think they are, because otherwise your students.
Now that you mention it, I'm looking at mine and they are reset since the new update. I said, now that you mention it, I'm looking at mine and they've reset since the update.
Okay. Good.
Got a question for you on the setting of the different passcodes. If you have your personal meeting room and you have this event number for your personal meeting room, can you have, let's say I'm dealing with 3 organizations, organization 1 or class number 1 with one passcode, class number 2 with another passcode, class number 3, another
No, you
passcode.
only have one personal meeting room, and if you put a passcode on it, everybody has the same passcode.
Okay, thank you.
But in that case, you would probably want to schedule your meetings separately and use different passcodes for each meeting, which is a scheduled meeting, which you can do. You can select that option that said create a unique meeting ID in that case. Okay. Let's see, none of this is probably pointful. When here's some settings for scheduling meetings that you may want to know about. Nah, those are pretty standard. Here's one that Kathy mentioned, I believe it was Kathy, that I use that you may or may not want to. Allow participants to join before host.
That was me.
I like that.
I thought so. This allows your students to enter the meeting before you do. So they can, just like they can walk into the classroom before you get there and sit down and talk to one another. I always have this on. So if I'm a little late getting to the meeting for some reason, it's not just, you don't just have a little meeting that says your host isn't here yet. The delinquent sucker will let you in when he finally arrives or something to that effect. So I let people come in when I'm not there. And indeed, that means people could use my personal meeting space at any time if they wanted to meet just for quickly for a little coffee discussion or something like that, they can use my personal meeting room. I don't care if they have the link to it. So there are some consequences to that, but I think it just makes for a much more collegial or much more welcoming atmosphere for your students in a class. Someone asked, well, if I turn that on, does that mean people can come into my meeting room at any time? Well, unless you specify otherwise, yes, but you can select this option and you can let people join only 5, 10, or 15 minutes before the scheduled time of the meeting.
But that's only if you have scheduled meetings, not if you have.
That means you have to schedule the meeting in advance. That's right.
Oh, I was hoping there was another way.
No, because that way, otherwise Zoom doesn't know when you're planning on meeting.
Yeah, that's true. Like I'm thinking, oh, my class starts at 9:30, but Zoom doesn't know.
Zoom don't know that, right? So yes, you can control that, but I just like to leave that open. If you intend to use your personal meeting room, you do have to enable your personal meeting ID. That should be enabled by default, but stuff happens. Make sure that's turned on if you want to use your personal meeting room. Then you have a series, 2 more options where you can use your personal meeting ID when scheduling a meeting, or when starting an instant meeting automatically. I had this one turned off, so when I showed you the meeting scheduling screen, it would give me an option to either use my personal meeting room or an individually generated meeting ID. If I turn this on, which I usually leave it turned on, you wouldn't even get that option. Any meeting that you start, whether you schedule, if this is on, if this particular option is on right here, no matter how you start a meeting, it's going to take place in your personal meeting room. And that's the way I like it. So I leave it set that way, but that's a personal choice. Let's see. Let me go back to
the watermark for a moment.
Yeah, just a second. I just wanted to see where I was there. Okay, just a second. Make sure I'm not forgetting something. Watermark. Yeah. Each attendee sees their own email address. Watermark.
Is that new to this unit, to this configuration now?
I don't know. I think we had that in our Confer Zoom accounts as well. It's never been turned on to my knowledge.
Why would you need a watermark?
Beats me.
Well, in case someone it takes an image of your course and posts it somewhere, you find out who the original poster was.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
that's true.
And it was in the old one too, because I even wondered then why you need a watermark. Thank you. That makes sense.
So if your branding is important, it's a branding tool. Okay, we're not going to talk about encryption. You certainly want to have your Zoom chat turned on. You can turn it off if you choose to. Sound notification when someone joins or leaves. My strong recommendation is to leave that off. Otherwise, you hear this chime, chime, chime as people join late and so on. Though if you're running a meeting room, that's useful. Or if you're running a waiting room, excuse me, that's useful. If you want to use polling in Zoom, you have to turn that on. It's probably turned on in your accounts. But if for some reason you don't see the poll option in your Zoom host menus, then that's because it's turned off here.
Go back to the host. On the host,
yes.
Sometimes you have other people that want to show in a meeting, like I do international meetings sometimes. And how can I have a no host so anybody who's in the meeting, if they need to show a
they need
PowerPoint, they can do it.
Share their screen.
Yeah.
Let me share my Zoom screen real quick again. Under the security icon in the host menus,
Okay,
you click that, share screen is an option there. If it's checked, participants can share their screens.
okay,
Unchecked, they can't.
okay. Well, that was one of the settings I
You can
was
turn
unable
that
to
on
do.
and off.
Okay,
It's probably a good idea to leave it off most of the time. And there will be another setting here in a minute that will show you how you can fix it so that that option is turned on or off at the beginning of the meeting. But yes,
meetings I have, I wouldn't have any problem with them showing that screen. It's easier to let them show that screen if they need to than otherwise.
gotcha. Here's a useful little one that I'm using right this moment. And let me kill my screen share, but if you need to show someone how to do something in Zoom, you want to turn on show Zoom windows during screen share and turn that on. What that means is that when you share your screen, if you share the screen that has your Zoom window on it, the people will not only be able to see whatever video that Zoom is displaying, they'll also be able to see your menus and see you operating Zoom. So you can show them how to do things like I just did. That's a very useful thing. If you don't have this set, when you share your screen, your Zoom windows vanish. Not only do they not appear to your participants, but you don't see your Zoom menus anymore either. What you see is this share control bar. Come on. Sorry.
Is that new?
Nope, that's been that way forever. You see this control bar. This is your Zoom host menus in a different form, but not nearly as convenient a form. Also, I can't show people how to do I can't show them how the host menus work from here. So it's inconvenient if I'm trying to show someone how to use Zoom. It's more, if I'm not trying to do that, it can be more convenient. I'll stop the share here. It can be more convenient because when I share my screen, my Zoom screens vanish and I can focus on the things that I want to share with my students. I don't have to move my Zoom screen out of the way to show them something that's underneath it, for instance. So it's debatable whether you want that on or not. I'd try it with it and without it and see how you like it. But definitely, if you're like trying to show your students how to do something in Zoom, like maybe they're going to have to give a presentation during a Zoom meeting and you want to show them how some of the Zoom menus work, you may need this. So I like that option.
Dave, can we do that when we're in an active Zoom meeting as opposed to going back to zoom.us and changing the?
Yes, you can.
How do we do that?
You can do it. Actually, if you change it during a meeting, the change will immediately take effect. You can change it here. Unfortunately, I'm about to forget something. You also have to change it in the Zoom client. You go to the little geared wheel again, and you get your Zoom, and there's a share screen button, a share screen page. And there's an option here, show my Zoom windows to other participants when I'm screen sharing. You have to set this here and on the website. But you can do that during a meeting and have it take effect immediately. I've done that before.
But we have to go to zoom.us to do it.
You have to go to zoom.us and to your client.
And to the client. Okay. And where do we find the client if we're PC, not Mac?
If you're a PC, share my Zoom screen again. See, this is really handy. Now you're seeing my Zoom menus down here. Oh God. What am I answering?
Where I would go to Zoom client on PC.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Desktop.
Senior moment. To run your Zoom client on Windows, the easiest way to do it is to go to the search box in your taskbar.
Uh-huh.
If you have Windows 11, by the way, that search box is moved. It's in a little ribbon at the bottom of the screen, but it's still accessible. And you just type Zoom in there. And the Zoom app pops up and you can run it.
Oh, and that's client. Okay, got it. Thank you.
That is the client, yeah. Sorry about that. It's getting late in the afternoon. All right. Here's where you can set under screen sharing on the, here I'm back on the website. You can set who can share initially. And you can set this to host only or to participants, to everyone. So that if I have it set this way, when the meeting starts, everybody has the right to share their screen. Or I can fix it so only I have the right to share my screen initially, but I can turn on participant screen sharing using the security icon at the bottom of the screen. So it's, I don't know. If someone else shares their screen during a meeting and you don't want them to, the quickest way to kill that is to share your screen. And your screen sharing takes, as the host, takes precedent over any participant screen share. So it'll blow their screen share away and replace it with yours. And that you can do very quickly.
Sometimes they'll have difficulty closing their screen too. So I'll just go back to mine.
Right. You can just share your screen for a second and then kill your share and that'll take care of it. Good point. That's neat. Do not set disable desktop screen sharing unless you really mean it. I've had people have that set accidentally because it looked like a good idea and they couldn't share their screen anymore. Go figure.
What page are you on?
There are no pages, unfortunately.
I mean, what are you, where are you?
Oh, I'm in the Zoom setting, Zoom account
Oh,
setting.
you're still under meetings. Okay, got it.
Under settings, and I'm in the
Settings,
meeting
right.
settings, correct.
Got
I'll
it.
show you some recording settings in just a moment. We're almost done here. Anything else you might want to change? Yes. Allow users to change their name when joining a meeting. You may want to disable this because sometimes students will amuse one another by changing their names that appear below their little windows. Something naughty. So you can shut that off here if you need to. And that you can also take off the ability for participants to rename themselves. But you probably don't want to do that because let's say somebody is has a reason to be shy, like they're being stalked or something. When they go into a Zoom meeting, they can change their name to something, Jane Doe or whatever, and that's going to make it less and keep their video off so they can remain anonymous. So it's probably a good idea to leave that on. Let's see.
Or they can use an avatar.
Or they could use an avatar, indeed. You want to make sure probably that you have breakout rooms turned on. That should be turned on already, but if you don't see the breakout room icon in your host menus, you can turn it on here. You definitely want to allow users to enable automatic captions. You want that turned on for accessibility. It should be turned on, but these are things you can check.
What are manual captions?
Manual captions are captions typed by a human being who's attending your meeting.
Oh, okay.
Real time, like a court reporter or real-time captioner.
Like the old days.
Like the old days, right. Before we had automatic captions.
But
They tend to be more accurate, but nobody can afford it anymore.
Do you have to have captions put on?
No.
Oh, good.
If someone requests it,
of course,
you certainly want to turn it on. And if you know you have a student or an attendee who needs the captions, you should certainly. It's a courtesy. If someone's audio is not real good, they may be able to follow the captions better than they can your spoken words, especially if their birth language is not English. The captions may help them. So it's a courtesy. I try to remember to turn it on at the beginning of my meetings. I don't always succeed, but I really probably should. There's no real reason not to, other than forgetting, which I'm a specialty at. You can turn on the ability, you can turn on and off the ability to use virtual backgrounds and avatars. So if you don't want your students showing up as cats, you can turn that off. I'm not going to worry about live streaming. That's an advanced thing. You can set email notifications for certain events for Zoom. You can have Zoom notify you when a cloud recording becomes available. I certainly would want to turn that on. If somebody joins before you do, or perhaps when you're not there at all, you can have Zoom send you an email letting you know, oh, so-and-so joined your Zoom room. I have that turned on. I get emails all the time because I put these links out there and say, we're going to meet for this professional development session later, and people will try clicking on the link just to see if it's going to work, which is a good idea. And I'll get an email says Esmond Correll has joined my personal meeting room.
I've tried that several times.
That's fine, but at least I know. It might mean that I had a meeting and I forgot it. Oh God, I better get in there.
Dave, is there still a limited space for us to save meetings? In other words, they were
recording.
They were purging old meetings, right?
Yes,
Deleting
there
them?
is still limited space for Zoom cloud recordings, and we haven't gotten around to starting nagging people about that yet. But now it's our responsibility to nag you, not the state's. So that's one of the reasons they transferred the management of our accounts to us, so we'd be responsible for that. And if, as a district, we use more than our fair share, then of course the powers that be are going to get a rocket from Sacramento. And in the time-honored nature of thermodynamics, that rolls downhill. And some of us will have some splaining to do or some fixing to do. But
Excuse me, Dave?
Yes.
Is there any other reason that it's advantageous that they moved it to Canvas?
Well, they didn't move anything to Canvas. They just replaced the app in Canvas that was already there. But Zoom hasn't moved to Canvas by any means. You can use Zoom whether you use Canvas or not. They're totally separate systems. They do talk to one another in a certain sense, but they're not otherwise interconnected or identical.
I'm wondering if the school wants us, for example, I'm asking my students to join us through Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a benefit to the school that they go through Canvas.
No, it's just a convenience for you and for the students. The school doesn't get any extra credit or any extra money or anything like that if you use the app in Canvas or if you don't. So it's merely a convenience for you and the students, not a requirement or there's no particular reason to do it one way or the other than your own preference and your own convenience. Let's see, and there are several things that can trigger an email notification. If you cancel a meeting that's been scheduled all the anybody who was signed up for it, if you do registration, will get a cancellation message.
I don't see an option still to do a notification, like set it an hour before or 15 minutes before. Is that on there?
No, but if that sort of thing can be done only if you use registration.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
Zoom would know who to send to only if they were registered for the meeting.
Right.
Oh, I thought they would all
And
get
in
that all
that
the time.
event, yes, there is a way to control when that notification is sent. But that's unusual.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
But if you set up a meeting for less than 10 people and you send it to the 10 people, and let's say you put the notification 10 minutes, each one of them would be notified about the meeting 10 minutes ahead of time.
only if they've registered for the meeting.
Oh, they have to say I accept.
Because
Okay.
Zoom doesn't know that they're going to attend the meeting unless they register in advance. And that's something I didn't really cover other than just here. And if that's something you're interested in, let me know and I'll send you some more information on that.
Well, I can probably work through that. I got other things to work through more important than that one.
That's
Like the settings.
Always been my view too. Okay, so those are some settings that you might want to think about in here. And check from time to time, particularly the one about passcodes. Someone earlier today said, my students are being asked for a passcode. I never put a passcode in there. Apparently, somehow during the migration process or during a Zoom client update or whatever, this got set to on. And suddenly there was a passcode and the students were asking, what's the passcode? The instructor said, I don't know, I didn't set it. So
I didn't set it and I would not have said it as it was set, but I was stuck with it.
Well, no, but now you can get rid of it. You know how to get rid of it now, right?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
You bet. Yeah, and as I say, that's happened to me. And it's aggravating, and I don't know why it happens. I just know that occasionally it does, probably because the update technology is not perfect. And that's pretty much true with any technology. There are some recording settings that you can change as well. First off, you can turn on local recording on or off. If you turn local recording on, that just means you have the option to record to your local computer instead of to the Zoom cloud. Then there are a couple of things you can change about that, but pretty much this is mostly just on or off. Cloud recording, there's a bunch of different options that you can choose. And some of those do matter. For instance, if you want to make sure that your Zoom cloud recordings are captioned, you need to make sure that create audio transcript is checked. Otherwise, there's going to be no captions. I had somebody call me the other day or email me the other day saying, whoa, my recordings aren't captioned anymore. What happened? This setting had gotten removed somehow. Let's see. You can choose whether to display participants' names in the recording or not. You may not want to in the case of students. That's why I have that turned off. Do you want to save your captions in a separate file? You might. Let's say if you want to upload this recording later to Canvas Studio and you want to use the automatic captioning in Zoom rather than that in Canvas Studio, you may have to upload the captions separately as a file. So it's a good idea to have those created. Most of these settings are set the way you want them automatically, but particularly I'd check to make sure that create audio transcript under advanced cloud recording settings is checked. Otherwise, you won't get captions and you won't be able to use the recording. And getting the captions, getting that recording captioned, if it's not done on the initial upload to the Zoom cloud, requires you to download the video file from the Zoom cloud and upload it into YouTube or Canvas Studio separately in order to get it captioned. It's not the end of the world, but it's one extra thing. And that's pretty much everything else, pretty much standard vanilla. But there are recording settings there that you can check. All right. That's pretty much everything I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for being patient since we had so many great questions earlier. I ran a little over here, but that pretty much covers it. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions you may have. I'll spend as long as necessary at that about Zoom. Let me start by going back to the, go ahead.
My question is this, because one of my colleagues is upstairs and wanted to be a part of the session. She wasn't. And I said, I knew you would have it have recorded.
Right.
Can you tell me about when, a couple, 2 or 3 days or something like that, or longer?
When is it going to be online? Yeah, 2 or 3 days is pretty good bet.
Oh, okay, because I told her I learned a
know
lot
where
from
to
this
find
one.
it?
Well, is it the same place we found the others? You
Yes.
went to the
They're all under workshop archives on the open on demand site.
on demand, yes.
And Michio,
Okay.
I just saw I had a good question pop up there.
It's going to be under migration. Is that the title you use? That's what you're going to store it under?
Yeah, that'll be one of the keywords. Yes.
Okay. I'll tell her. Thank you, because I gotta go.
You bet. Michio had an interesting question. Can anyone else host a Zoom meeting under her Zoom ID, your personal Zoom ID? No, not unless you give them access to your Zoom account. That personal meeting ID, for instance, is unique to you. No one else can use it. Good question. All right, and now I'm going to go back through the chat here and see if there's anything I haven't answered. How is the personal meeting room different from setting up a Zoom meeting with a student? Well, they're two different things. When you set up a meeting, you can either use your personal meeting room or an automatically generated meeting room. You can do that no matter how many people you're meeting with. And we went through the various ways you can determine whether you use your personal meeting room or a randomly generated meeting room with its own meeting ID. I'll let you know. I tell you what, if I get the okay back to use that bingo app, I have your names and your accounts have all been migrated, so I should have your email addresses as well in the attendance data. So I'll be able to let you know if that bingo app comes back approved. And because if they'll approve it for me, they should approve it for you too. So I'll let you know. Okay, we talked about that. Can I generate a Zoom ID number each time and send the invitation to students to hold a meeting? Yes. If you schedule a meeting and you select, and you select generate meeting ID automatically, then that you will get when you save this, you will get a join link and a unique meeting ID that you can share with your students. And you can do that as soon as you schedule the meeting, and you can schedule the meeting as far in advance as you like. Good question.
I have a question.
Go for it. Please. Yes, go right ahead and ask, please.
Before the migration, I had an app icon on my Zoom,
Right.
and I would touch on it and I would get a nice list of apps.
Right.
Now, after the migration, I have nothing.
Okay. Well,
And I was really wanting to get, for example, Google Earth app.
yeah. I think there is a Zoom app for Google Earth. Let me share my Zoom screen. So you see, when I click on apps, I see my apps. And I see the ones that I have chosen to use and linked to my account. If I haven't chosen any of them, this should just be blank. If you want to see all the apps that are available, you go over here to Discover. And then you get this long list of apps.
Okay, I didn't see, I guess it's tiny on my phone. I didn't see where to.
Oh boy, yeah. Oh, and yeah, apps would be difficult to manage on your phone. You'd be better off doing that on a computer.
Okay.
Okay.
But can you show me again where the Discover is?
Discover is right there. Can you see? Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that on the phone? The upper right. Just a second. Let me use annotation. Hold on. I got that. There's no reason not to do that. All right. It's right there. In the upper right-hand corner.
Okay, I think your toolbar may be covering it. Yeah, okay. Okay, I see good enough. It's good enough. I see where it is. It's under the toolbar.
Oh, it is covering that up. Shoot.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way. There. Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Dave, I have a question.
Go for it.
I already scheduled, I used the schedule for my classes all the way through the semester coming up.
Right.
If I say, okay, it's a reoccurring meeting and I set that up, then registration, I don't schedule that. If I click personal meeting ID,
yeah,
then the same ID is going to work for everyone, right?
Correct.
So then, and I don't use a password or any of that, then when I publish that, copy that link, it'll work for all of them.
Correct.
And what I'm really doing is just giving them a schedule, which Tuesday and Thursday the meeting is going to be.
Just reminding them to be there, indeed, which is
Right.
not a bad idea.
Okay, so it gives them all that other crap about how they can phone in if they're in Iowa or wherever,
Yeah.
all that stuff. They'll see all that. but-
I don't think there's one student in 100 who'd be dialing in to listen to the audio.
No, it's not going to happen. Okay, thank you very much. That's really what I wanted to know for today.
Oh, good. I'm glad I finally got to it.
Thank you. I have to leave now.
All right. Keep asking. I'm here as long as you need me.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Well, thank you for coming.
I have to say, I'm the one person that I had my own Zoom meeting and somehow I couldn't get in. So I had to telephone in my own class.
Oh my.
I guess
how were you joining? Through a phone or through a computer?
No, I think I never joined my teaching through a phone, but for some reason my audio wasn't working.
Oh,
So.
Well, that could have been something to do with the computer rather than Zoom.
Maybe,
or it could be Zoom just not finding your audio hardware. You can at least check that in advance to be sure that it's a good idea to do that periodically, or at least, you know, at the beginning of the meeting, you do the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
But you can check that before you start the meeting, or you can check it before you start the meeting, but you can check it as soon as you start the meeting. Is probably easier. Let me share my Zoom screen again. This is so handy. Going to the little microphone icon in the lower left of your host menu, and there's a little up caret next to it, a little arrowhead pointing up. That's your audio menu. If you click that, you can select the microphone or the speakers that you want to use if you have multiples, but there's a test speaker and microphone option there. If you click that, the first thing you'll hear is a tone playing in your speakers. If you don't hear that tone, then your speakers there's something wrong. Maybe the volume's turned down, maybe they got disconnected, maybe they failed, but here's what it looks like and sounds like. If you hear that, you say yes, click yes, and it asks you to talk. And it plays back what you say, if your microphone is working.
And if it's not working, you do what?
Then you got a problem with your computer.
Okay.
You start doing some audio troubleshooting, which can vary considerably. For one thing, you start Zoom by making sure that you have selected a microphone or an audio input that actually works. And there may be things there that you don't even know are there, that are not hooked up or not turned on or not working for some reason. You want to make sure you pick the right microphone or the right input, audio input. And you may have to try 2 or 3 different ones.
I only have my computer.
And
microphone.
And even if it worked the last time, things can happen on your computer that can cause it to change. Like if I pick a microphone that is not working right. You only hear me if I've selected a microphone that's actually connected, it'll be connected if it shows up, but it could be turned off at the microphone or something. So you want to check this. Also, you can tell if you're transmitting sound by watching the little microphone icon here. If you see a little green bar, a little green level rise up in it, then you're transmitting. So if other people can't hear you, it's not because you're not putting out sound in that event.
Thanks a million.
You're okay on your end. You might also have the wrong speaker picked. Your computer may have speaker outputs that you're not using, and you want to make sure you've got the right one selected. You may have to try them at random until one works, and run the test again until you get everything working. You may simply have to go and plug your speakers in or turn the volume up, or you may have to plug the microphone back in. Maybe you kick the cable out. I've certainly done that. So those are some troubleshooting things you can do. Also, sometimes Windows, particularly the audio program, the audio interfaces in Windows will just crash. And this can happen in Mac OS too, but it's more likely to happen in Windows because Windows has some very deep down in the kernel of the Windows code is still DOS. If you go back that far, disk operating system code. And there were no audio drivers in DOS or anything like that. So all of that's kind of been bolted on Windows over the years. And it tends to be a little bit less reliable in terms of audio interfaces. And what you have to do in that event is just reboot your computer, and generally everything reloads and resets, and you're fine.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate
that's just
it.
some things to try. Jay, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a quick question. How do you make yourself in the little corner there?
That's Unfortunately, that's not a quick answer.
Okay, all right,
But I'm more than happy to give you the short answer, okay?
okay.
All right, I'm using a technique called chroma key or green screen. What's actually down there is me sitting in front of a green screen like that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm using that technique through an external video studio application called Open Broadcaster Studio. Here's what it looks like.
Oh, I think you have some Zoom sessions on that.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Here's what I have 4 screens on this computer. So this is what's on my first screen up here. And this is it's a video studio and a piece of software. It's basically the guts of what they have in the network trailer parked outside the stadium for Monday Night Football, where they can select all those different cameras and do instant replays and change who you're looking at and superimpose one or more camera images on top of the other and so on, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm superimposing an image of a camera that's pointed at me over top of a shared computer screen, which I can also use as an input source. And I'm using the chroma key technology built into Open Broadcaster Studio to make me seem to float over this screen. And I can put myself anywhere I like.
Okay, well, it looks like I'll have to wait to another session, but I appreciate knowing.
Well, you don't, if you're interested enough, you don't have to wait. I'll just show this because any of you may be interested, those of you who are still with us. You can go to our open on demand site at SDCCD-EDU.org. Did I type that correctly? No, I got an extra C in there. I'm afraid of that. This URL is on just look at any of my emails. It's in the email signature on my emails. And here's the slideshow here at the top. OBS is featured there. This slide, just click on that slide. Go to that. This is a full set of tutorials on how to get OBS, how to set it up, and how to use it with a green screen or not, with or without, and how to use it with Zoom.
All right, thank you.
So that's the shortest answer I can give.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the session. Bye.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else have anything? If you think of something later, as always, you're welcome to email me. Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Dave. It was awesome. This was so nice updating.
I hope it was helpful.
Appreciate it. I'll see you next workshop. Have a nice
I'll
summer.
be here on Friday. We're doing PowerPoint and Zoom and Zoom on Friday. So
okay. Have a nice day.
Take care. You too. Thanks for coming. Christine, anything I can help with? Well, email me if there's anything I can help. And take care. Bye-bye.